Oh my, this was going to be a 5-minute quickie, and it has turned into one of those #longer podcasts. And we look at things like no excuses, holding ourselves to account, not allowing ourselves to go, well, it wasn't my fault, it was somebody else's fault, because we're going to do something about that. I've got loads of different ways of being able to do that, processes, ways to think about yourselves, even a couple of apps that you can use to really make sure that you get results. So do have a listen, because there are so many things you could do here to make sure all your goals get done, and they get done quicker, bigger, better than you could imagine, and then build upon them. Okay? That's the plan for this. If that's important to you to be able to achieve your goals and more, be good to listen. Have a listen after this.
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Cloughie. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Okay, my friends, we're back again, and I don't know whether there's going to be a longer podcast, a shorter, longer podcast. It certainly won't be a short 5-minute quickie, but it might be a long 5-minute quickie. So let's just play. And the thing about this is, it's not about what you do. It's about what you don't do. And that's a little saying by someone quite infamous. Infamous? Unfamous. Me. And you see, here's the thing. Have you ever thought about this? There's a reason. There's a reason why I didn't start that. There's a reason why I didn't do that. There's a reason maybe I didn't show up. Maybe there's a reason I didn't show myself, because it could be that, well, I wasn't feeling too good, or no, it wasn't the right idea, or, if we're talking about work, well, I didn't want to make a mistake. Well, actually, the weather wasn't good enough, or it wasn't sunny, it wasn't raining. Well, finances weren't so good. Everything can have a legitimate reason, can't it? Can't it? Would you believe all of that? We do, don't we? And is it right? Well, there's only one answer to that. And that is a big, massive hell no. Those reasons, they're not really reasons, are they? They are your excuses. Well, they're my excuses. Your excuses, my excuses. I'll take it on board, my responsibility. They're my excuses. Because you see, I don't think we're alone. And I think we all go to the effect side of life and give excuses why we didn't do things. But that doesn't make it right. And the thing is, the more we do it, the more we let ourselves off the hook, and we start to believe our bloody selves. And what's the point of that if we know it's not right inside? We know, don't we? We know when we're giving that little bit of BS just to try to get us off the hook. And it feels like that, doesn't it? Those excuses, they feel like they let us off the hook. And again, they're the same for everyone else. No, they're not. And I'll tell you why they're not. Because the reason they're excuses, it means you're not at cause. What? We're going to own it. You see, in NLP, and I'm sure there are other places, but NLP, we have a little quotation, or a little, like a thing which says C is greater than the E. What's that mean? Well, it means the cause is greater than the effect. And the effect is just excuses. And if you just deal with excuses, all you're doing is making more and more excuses, more effects of why you couldn't do it. But if you go to the cause, the real cause of something, it means you take ownership of it. You take ownership. I'll say that again. You take ownership of it, because you are now saying, I'm responsible for this. And if I'm responsible for this, there can be no excuses. So there isn't an excuse why I didn't start that. There isn't a bona fide excuse why I didn't do that, show up, show myself. There's no legitimate reason. I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to do something about it. It's what we call total ownership, I guess. And there's a lot of books on ownership and things like that, but I just think it's breaking it down into its small little components. It's very simple. We just become responsible for the things that we do, the things that we think, and the results that we get. We don't try to put it off to anybody else or blame anybody else. In fact, there's no blame, is there? They're just results. But we need to take ownership, and the thing is, that can be difficult. It's difficult owning up to saying this is mine. But hey, this is what we're going to do, because isn't that what personal development is all about? And this is where I started. It's not about what you do. It's about what you don't do. You see, if you're giving excuses, you're not taking ownership. You're not taking responsibility, and therefore you're not making amends. You're not creating new things, and that's what you're not doing. And that's what we're going here. So I thought, what could we do to take ownership of things and make things differently? And I thought to myself, well, what are the things we could do? So we could take a really good look at these things and decide first. I think this is really important. Do we really want to do these things? Is it something that you think we ought to do? Is it that something that maybe is expected of us, but we don't really want it? And I think there's when people, maybe it's something you've either asked yourself to do, or there's something that other people have asked you to do. And you see, if someone asks you to do something, would you mind doing that? There's a yes and a no to the answer to that question. And you should be entitled to say no or yes. I think sometimes we have to decide, how we're going to say no. Maybe, I've got so much on, I've got a quota of doing things, and I'm there. I'm full up. I just can't take any more at the moment. So I only let you down, and I don't want to let you down. I'm really sorry I can't do that. But the other thing is, we have to decide also if it's not a no, is it a yes? But is it a real yes? Because I think it's got to be a yes which goes, do you know what? When I think about it, I get a really good feeling, and I say to myself, hell yes, that's what I'm going to do. And it's got to be one of those things, because there's so many people, so many requirements of us, isn't there? People and things asking us to do things, and we can't fit them in the time. And if you spread yourself too thin, all you're going to do is do a rubbish job on everything, and you're going to feel absolutely, you just won't get the results, and that's not good. So it's better to do less really well, I think. But the thing is, we just have to make sure, is it something I want to do? Because sometimes we might have had something that we wanted to do a long time ago, and we just keep bringing it forward, and it's just not the right time. So what do? Instead of getting guilty about it, making those bloody excuses, we actually say, I've decided, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to park this. That's what we do at worst. We can either bin it completely and say, that's it, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do it. There's no excuse now. I'm just not going to do it. There's no expectations on me now. But if it's something you say, well, actually, I think I will do this sometime, but it just hasn't got that hell yes at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just park it in a place. And I'm going to give you an idea of how to park these things shortly. I've got a lovely little system that I use, and it's a physical system. But the thing is, if it becomes a hell yes, but it's a sort of hell, it's a hell yes, but we're still not doing it. What are we going to do now? Because we've thinned out these things that pull on us. But now we've got the things, and we're going, well, I need to explore why I'm not doing the blooming things. So what we're going to do is do with that wonderful word called muse. I love that word, muse. We're going to write this stuff down, because we're just going to make not a list, because a list automatically tends to give it a hierarchy. The one at the top is better than the one at the bottom, and that's not the case here. We're just going to throw these down on a page, anywhere, scatter them around. You see, I want you to first of all try to rank them, and hopefully there's not too many, because if there's too many, you just know there's too many. And if there's too many, you really, once you've written them all down, say, what are the most important three? You might even say, what's the most important one first? What's the most important thing I have to do out of all of those that's going to give me the best return on my investment, or it's going to make the most change in my life, or it's going to make whatever, but it's got to be that what really tugs at you, saying this is the most important, and you bring that one out onto another page. And then if you want to do a bit more than that, you go, what's left? Let's find out about that. Which one if I could only have one? And you do that, and I say only do it for maybe 3, but let's just work on one. I found out the one thing, because I want to start getting some successes first. And I want you to be able to follow the process of getting these things done. So you are at cause, you are responsible, but more importantly, you're responsible for the results. So what we're going to have to do is rank them, or certainly make sure first. If you've taken more than one, then you're going to rank them to find out which is the most important. But we've got one. This is the most important one. Now, to muse about this on a separate piece of paper is to find out your why. We always come back to our why, because if there isn't a why, a real motivation, a real importance for you to do this, it can't be a hell yes. There's another reason. And so we need to make sure that you're doing it for the right reason. So you've got to think, and I like to write these things down because, again, you can always come back to this then. It doesn't come in one ear, out the other. You write it down, you can come back if need be. And you just ask yourself, so why is this so important to me? And you come up with an answer. And please don't think about it too long. Because if you think about it, go, oh, well, Cloughie said, why is this important to me? Let me think about that over this beer, this cup of coffee. I don't know. That's too long. I want an unconscious answer, because consciously you've been thinking about doing it for bloody ages. And consciously you've been giving your own excuses. So we want an unconscious why, because then you'll find if that why is big enough. And if it isn't big enough, then you're going to have another choice. So why is this important to me? What does it mean to me? What will it allow me to do? What will it get me? And if you want to go really deep, any answer you get, you then ask of that answer, why is that important to me? What does that mean to me? And what will that get me? And if you want to go even deeper still, you do it again on that second answer. Why is this second answer important to me? What will it get me? What will it allow me to do? Because now you're coming three removed from the original question of why is this important to me? And you're going to say to yourself, well, now I know the real subtle meanings of this. Now, does it still become a hell yes? Because if it does, now you're going to know and believe it is. And your unconscious mind is actually going to start going, do you know what? This is right. Because you can look at those answers and you're going to get a feeling. That hell yes is going to turn into a feeling. Think about it. Think about what it would feel like to get those things and feel it. Feel those feelings. And if those feelings are something that really motivates you, that feels that I want this, then you've got to do two things. You've got to commit, and you have to commit with the will to do whatever it takes. If you want to write it down, some people actually write this down. I now commit to doing this. I think it's a good thing to do. Say it out loud. Say to your unconscious mind, we are committing to this because it means this, and it means this, and this is a feeling I'm going to get. And you know what? I'm going to schedule it now. And that's what you have to do. Schedule time for it in the next 7 days. No more excuses now. The only thing I'd say is don't schedule too much. Yes, because you've got now a lot of motivation. But if you suddenly then go, I'm going to do, 5 days in the next 7. And maybe you haven't got 5 days worth of time in the next 7 to commit to this one particular project, this one thing. So we need to be reasonable. But we also want a win. We want to make sure that we start our momentum with baby steps, and each baby step's going to get bigger and bigger. We're going to get more wins, and we're going to get more and more motivation. And you're actually going to start to get the things that it means to you, that importance. So look at your week. How much time can I reasonably schedule? And now I'm going to commit to it. You put it in your diary. You put it in your phone alarm. You do anything and everything. You can tell people, do not disturb me. I'm going to do this on this particular day. And you will see massive results. And when you see massive results, and that's why I only say just do the one for the moment. Because when you start to get massive results about that one thing, then it's going to generalize. Because that's what happens. First of all, we specify. And then that specificity, I love that word too, that specificity and the results coming from that will tend to generalize into other areas of your life. You'll get more confident. You'll start to create those deadlines in other areas and actually get them. Do things that you commit to generally, because that committing is going to start to become a bloody good habit, because that's what happens. It always happens that way. Now, what else could we do? Because that's literally a brilliant start. But then what happens occasionally? We start to give excuses again, don't we? We have to catch ourselves in that very moment, call ourselves out. We really do. And actually say to ourselves, out loud if need be, look, this is BS. It's a total excuse. And I've got to decide right now whether I buy into this excuse or I take responsibility. And it's as simple as that. I've got the will to do whatever it takes. I'm going back to those whys, that motivation, the reasons it's so good for me, and I'm going to actually get back on the horse, as it were, and do that stuff. Because if you don't, there's no point in any of this. And then you don't need excuses after that, do you? You just, let it go. You park it, bin it. But this is all about consciously and unconsciously parking, binning, or committing. But what else could we do? You see, some of that deciding, that scheduling, and that committing needs a little bit of help. Needs a little bit of help in shoring up, I guess, that resolve, that commitment. And how we can do that, I think, is just to use a little bit of visualization. You can use hypnosis. There's lots of different things in the hypnosis tracks I've got. You'll find different things about setting your goals, doing this, doing that, perceptual positions, talking to yourself about getting the real understanding. But also just plain and simple imagineering, where you just look at the end result to make sure it's what you really want. Because you can be really sure that you're motivated to do it, but do you really know what it will feel like? Because I think that's the most important thing. Knowing what the full result, the end step, the last step, that when you really know that you've achieved this goal, you've got there, what will that feel like? What will that feel like? And you see, maybe just understanding your intention. So as you think about that last step that tells you, yeah, I've got this project, I've got this goal, I've got this thing. First of all, does it feel right? So if you were to see yourself actually just getting that last step, and then as you see yourself over there getting that last step, just float into that picture of you. Float into, imagineering, floating into that body of yours over there. And as you float into that body, just see what you'll see, hear what you'll hear, and feel those feelings of achieving your why, as it were, achieving the result. And does it feel as good as you could? But also, think about, having got the result now, what will that allow you to do now? If you were to look even further into the future and notice what new goals you could do, what new skills you have, what repertoire, of emotions, behaviors, skills, beliefs, what have you got now that will allow you to be built upon, as it were? It's a new set of foundations, a new set of skills, skill stacking, to move on to even bigger whys, bigger projects, bigger results, personal development. And this is the unplugged version of it. And maybe when you're here, just understand what was the intention of me doing this? Because it wasn't just about the feeling. It was allowing, maybe you were helping people. Maybe there's a sense of service. Maybe it's finding that real you with your passions, your missions, your vision. Maybe it's that feeling of, I really am showing up. This is who I'm meant to be right now, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better each time. And then just hook into this and notice, how safe do I feel when I'm like this? How safe is this? Because I want you to notice how safe and comfortable it is. Notice how any conflicts have disappeared. And if there's a conflict, you're going to resolve that. You can go back and resolve it. But if you're aligned to this imagineering will just make it even more. Because you've got to remember, just come back. If you did that, by the way, while I was talking, just come back into your body. Because you've got to remember, your unconscious mind doesn't realize what's imagineering, or what's real. So you're setting up your unconscious mind to understand it can be done, to understand that you're fully protected, to understand with conflicts disappeared, this is how it feels. Now then, you say, Paul, Cloughie, what are you talking about this when things are conflicted? And therefore, I'm not totally aligned. I'm not congruent with this. I really want it, but there's something that's holding me back. Well, do you remember way back? And it was not that way back. It's to the podcast hashtag 206 of longer podcasts. Can you imagine that? Called Hostile Relations. In that, I did a process of the thing that really want to do it, but it's just pulling me back a little bit. But there's another part of me that really wants to do something. On one hand, I really want to do it, but on the other, not sure. Well, there's a process in that podcast. If you hadn't listened to the podcast, I do suggest you do that, because it'll explain all about this resolving and integration of conflicting parts within us. But what I've done, and for those of you who have signed up for the hypnosis downloads from all of these podcasts and that special place, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, you'll already know that I've done a separate hypnosis track from that podcast. So I've taken out the process and I've made it into a deep hypnosis, so your unconscious mind can really resolve and integrate this conflict. How do you get that, Paul? I'll tell you now, just very quickly. Go to paulcloughonline.com/podcast. Sign up, boom, you'll get that. And you'll also get an email roughly once a month. It's very short, telling you, well, what's new and whether there's a new hypnosis track out before anything else. Just maybe a few discounts and things like that on some of my products. But it's very small, once a month at the most. So, the 90 seconds of hypnosis tracks. Why have I put hypnosis tracks on a separate website? Well, it's so simple really. I wanted you to have them all in one place, so you can look through them all. You can find the particular one you want. I've even made them downloadable, so you can put them on any of your playing devices that you prefer. You don't need Wi-Fi, you don't need the iTunes or whatever. You can put them anywhere you like. You can even burn them onto disk if you want. Where do you get them? Well, there you go. I told you, it's paulcloughonline.com/podcast. If you're worried about your email address, please don't be, because they stay totally safe with me. I only use them to send you out that email and give you access. Simple as that. I send you a link, a special link, so you and only you can access those hypnosis tracks, because I want them just for you. And the other thing about this is you've taken responsibility. I don't want to make these open to everyone, just random. You have taken responsibility to listen and be part of this community of personal development. And I want to help you. I want to help you personally to get your dreams, your goals. And therefore, I'm giving you these tools, these protocols, these paradigms, whatever you want to call them, but in deep hypnosis. So just enjoy. Have more fun than you can stand with hypnosis. Anyway, that's how you do that. Because if you think about it, well, I'm just thinking of my notes I made here. You see, the other things there, and from other podcasts, are setting your state. Because sometimes it's just a matter of setting your state, the right state to do this work. Maybe you wanted to have a little discussion with yourself and that part of you that's holding you back, just to understand it. Remember, perceptual positions. Going into that other position to see and get a different perception on this issue so you can learn. And once you've learned, things disappear. They're also in the hypnosis tracks. There's a lovely NLP process. Basically, any process you pick from that list of hypnosis tracks and NLP processes, I think they'll work, because you'll do it with the right intention. Now then, we talked about calling yourself out. But what you have to also remember is you have to hold yourself to account. Now, how do I do that, Paul? Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you, because it's here. Really want to keep this with you. Holding yourself to account. Now, how do you do that? I think you review. You review at the end of the week. So if you've committed to a week or periods in that week, at the end of the week, you have to review and be honest. Be honest. Did you do what you said? And if you did, plan your next week. Maybe you did more. So make sure you can plan ahead and really schedule and re-establish that commitment. Look over your whys. But if you didn't get enough, was there a justified reason? And when I say justified, where there was something even more important that had to be done by you alone. They're special, They don't come along very often, but there may be something. Or maybe you were ill, something like that. Maybe there was something that really needed to be done. Now that's fine. You can just reschedule it because you're going to be honest about this. But if things have slipped, maybe you've got to revisit that why. Because if it's still important to you, but maybe it's not strong enough, remind yourself of those whys. Again, go back into that Imagineering. Maybe anchor the feeling of that ultimate why. So you can fire off that anchor when you set your state. They are going back into those hypnosis tracks. Learn how to do that. Fire off this state, this emotion, this way of you want to be just before you start to do the work, and certainly when you commit. And then that's it. And then also you can even think, if there is you've got the right why, but you just, maybe it's a little bit that you haven't quite got all the information. Just ask yourself, what can I do to ensure this happens? Or maybe, what do I need to learn? Is there something I'm now missing that if I learnt it would enable me to do this? Because there's so much stuff on YouTube. There's every podcast. There's great podcasts here, by the way, but there's loads of stuff that you could try to revisit and go, there's a little bit of learning I need, a little skill, a little capability. Be honest with yourself and go get it. Now, how else could you go get that? Well, in NLP terms, you can model somebody. Oh, Cloughie, what do you mean model? Well, here's a simple way of modeling. Really simple. Is you find somebody who can do that skill that you want. And if you know them, you ask them, how do you do that? Can you keep it simple for me? Little baby steps. How do you do that? Write it down. Go and practice it. Visualize yourself doing those steps. Remember, unconscious mind doesn't realize what's real or imagined. So you then practice. Good practice makes things permanent. So you can do it in Imagineering and do it in real life. If you can't find somebody to ask, email or whatever, next best thing, get on things like YouTube and find someone who can. Notice them, watch them, listen to them, imagine what they're thinking, imagine what their beliefs are. I know you don't know them entirely, but you could try that. Try that to get inside their head. Now, another way you could do that is literally imagine them opposite you. Back to perceptual positions. Imagine them opposite you. Ask them the question and then move into that space as if you're going into them, looking back at you, and just describe what you feel and then come back again. Always come back to you. But there's so many different ways we can explore. I think we'll do a lot more of this on another podcast. Maybe just take one of those as a full process. But there's lots of stuff on those hypnosis and process tracks at paulcloughonline.com/podcast. Now, so much here. Why'd you buy people a cup of coffee? Why'd you buy a beer? Maybe a glass of wine for them. Sometimes, I guess, it's just to say thank you, or sometimes it's because you enjoy their company. And that's why this is a very, very cheesy way into a way that you can support this podcast, the Personal Development Unplugged podcast. You see, there's a thing called buymeacoffee.com, and it's just a way that people can support this podcast by metaphorically buying me a beer, a wine, a cup of coffee, because I guess you like my company, or I guess you like the content, or I just guess you just want to say thank you and help keep this podcast booming with all its wonderful stuff. If you do, go to buymeacoffee.com and look for, I think you could probably search for the Personal Development Unplugged podcast, but the main thing is, I think it's Cloughie PDU. And if you go there, you'll see that you can buy me a cup of coffee. You can even do like a monthly thing. And with that, obviously, I'm going to give you, if I can, stuff that repays you more than you'll ever support me for. So if that's something you'd like to do, and you'd like to support this podcast, and you like the company, there's a lot of likes there, isn't there? You have to like me a lot, I guess. But if you do, you can buy me a coffee, or more than one, and we can just sit down and chill. Anyway, it's buymeacoffee.com and look for Cloughie PDU. Let's enjoy. Slurp, slurp. To finish up, I think we need to just make sure there's no loose ends. This is something I've learned for myself a little while ago, that I was getting overwhelmed by all the stuff. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, if I just closed out one or two of these things, made sure they're done, I don't have to think about them again. And I started to make notes, and that didn't really work. And then there was two little, I think they're apps. Certainly one's an app, but one's a website, which I think is an app as well. I'm not sure, but it's certainly a website. First one is Cloughie. And that just allows you to put, for me anyway, for just putting down things I need to close out. Just as a list, they're on my phone, then I can look back and pick one for this week. I just want to clear that one out. What have I got to do? I can do a little, it's like a mini timeline or a little mini mind map, but in linear form. And you just go through that, pick out the things you need to do your baby steps, and just schedule them for the week. Tidy it up, get it out of the way. The other way, so I'll just repeat what it was. It's called Cloughie, and I think it's WorkFlowy. Okay, search that online and then have a look in your app store or whatever it is. The other one is Trello, and Trello, Trello. I use this a lot, especially with things like the podcast, to know where I am. And it's, if you could imagine having a board with lots of sticky notes on and columns, so things to think about, things that need editing, things that need posting, things that need, each one is a column. And as you do one, you move that sticker to the next column. So you know what you've got to do and where you are. Well, Trello is a thing that you can do that with on computer. So you can just slide them across. It's so easy. Both of these are entirely free, by the way. Certainly there's a professional side of it, where you pay more, but the basics are really, really good. And in that way, you can give yourself no excuses now. Clear up the old stuff, which is getting in your way, getting a clear picture of what needs to be done and when you're going to do it. Commit and be done. Now, here's one more thing, and we'll talk about this, I know, in another podcast, and if we haven't talked about it before anyway. Don't compare yourself with others, because you'll be looking, if it's something, a skill you're trying to get, you're going to be looking at people who are good because they're the ones you want to model. But remember, they've been doing it longer than you. What you also need to remember is when they started, they didn't know about it either. And they've had to learn and do exactly what you're doing now. But the thing to do is, instead of comparing yourself to others, look back 6 months ago, a year ago. Where were you? And the reason I say not just next month or last month, a year ago, 6 months ago, because we tend to evolve with our skills. We have those little places where we plateau and then we springboard off. But if you go back 6 months, a year ago, you can see how much you have evolved. You can take that subtlety out of it and go, wow, look how much I've done. And then celebrate it. And the thing about celebration is not just for how much you've grown in these 6 months, this year, but also when you commit and you've done the work in that week, when you review what you've done, find out something you can celebrate with. Do something to make yourself good. Go and do something. Really, it could be absolutely crazily silly, but do something that just makes you feel good and say, I'm doing this because I've done this thing. I had the will to do whatever it takes, and I've blooming done it, and I'm going to do even more. And this is how good it feels to celebrate and just reward myself just that little bit. Only reward yourself for doing the stuff, by the way, don't you? So we can't fool ourselves. And then things become fun. So this can be then serious fun. Serious fun is good fun. So let's just recap. And the recapping is, I guess, going right to the beginning, it's not about what you do. It's about what you didn't do, and not accepting those excuses or reasons, because that's all they are. So we say, no more excuses. No one was born special. Remember that? No one was born special. We are all ordinary people with the power to do extraordinary things. And that's what we're going to do. But we're learning to do those extraordinary things. So that's why we do what we do. Look for those people to guide us, to motivate us. But we do, and we just compare ourselves to ourselves. With a little thought, maybe in our mind, is that we're going to be uncommon in a group of uncommon people. I love that. Be uncommon in a group of uncommon people. You then will, when you have that as your little mantra, yeah, I'm uncommon in this group of uncommon people. I'm going to do extraordinary things because I've got the will to do whatever it takes. And then when you do look back over the next 6 months, or back 6 months in 6 months' time, you will be amazed. You'll sit there and you'll say, how far Cloughie was right. He was so right. I'm so pleased that I'm still listening to the PDU. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a few more things to come after this, but that's the main part of this. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know. Let me know. Feedback at personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Lovely little email. You get one back from me. Anyway, going to wrap this up now. And then I just want to remind you of one or two things. So please stay. Stay on the line, as they say. And you might learn something and remember something. Okay. But until the next time, I'll see you real soon, my friends. Bye-bye. Hey, so before you go, thank you so much for bearing with me. Give me your time. I'm so grateful that you'd like to spend time with me, and I love spending time with you and improving ourselves. And to do that, what I'd love you to do is share this podcast, because sharing is caring. And it will make a difference if you share it to other people. It is that selfless service. And it's also putting stuff out there into that wonderful field of everything. And if you do that, things will just get better for us. And you'll know you've done a good thing. Also subscribe. If you could subscribe on that little app that you listen to this on, that would be absolutely awesome. And maybe a little review. But don't forget those hypnosis tracks. paulcloughonline.com/podcast. And don't forget that free hypnosis track that you've got at paulcloughonline.com, reducing your anxiety in 15 minutes. Lovely little track. It's downloadable and it's free. So go there. And just before we wrap this up completely, remember the 5-minute quickies? Well, here's a little heads up to an old 5-minute quickie, and it's all about being a superhero. Have a little listen, and let me tell you what number it was. It was number 245. The FMQ 245, be a superhero whenever you want to. Here's a heads up, and then you'll be leaving this unplugged mind of mine. This is your big heads up to the shorter podcast, the 5-minute quickie as we call it. And it's all about, well, being able to change your behaviours, change the way you feel, change the way that you make pictures in your mind in an instant. And it is more fun than you can stand. And you have to stand, and it will be more fun than you can stand. Interested? Have a listen.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.